And then their attorney says, "You thought you might be in physical jeopardy?" And she says, "You, as a mother, you feel like anything could be possible in those moments. It's terrifying."
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi and welcome to Blossom Talk. I'm Ashley Flaw, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. Yesterday, I talked a lot about delusion, both in the media and, of course, in Blake Lively's mind and in her lawsuit. There were a lot of headlines that are really misleading in this case, how they're twisting these new text messages as bombshells to prove there was a smear campaign. Well, now we have got some more evidence, you guys, from Justin Baldoni's team, because the judge just agreed to unseal more of Blake Lively's deposition. So more of her sworn statement is now public, and I'm going to go through some of it. It's so revealing to me that she has no idea of any smear campaign, anything that's going on. Anyways, this was all filed in response from Jed Wallace, who has been dragged into this legal feud again. He was first dismissed by the judge, and then Blake Lively decided to bring him back in. And he was there at the deposition day in front of Blake Lively and I think her 8 attorneys that were present. And his lawyer asked Blake Lively some questions that she had really difficult answering. Also, there's new filings from Brian Friedman and the Wayfarer against Leslie Sloan. You know, the new bombshell sworn statement from the Daily Mail reporter James Vitushka that was filed a few days ago. And then Leslie Sloan was quick to send a letter to the judge, say, "Look here, I was right. They should pay my legal fees." Well, I don't think so. We're going to go through that as well. And also, congrats to Taylor Swift, who just got engaged. So this happened while Blake Lively was still really busy posting or reposting on her story birthday wishes to her from her friends. She just turned 38 a couple of days ago. And she didn't really get a lot of attention around that. Not even her husband, Ryan Reynolds, wished her a happy birthday on social media. But some of her really close friends did. All of these people who she reposted on her story for saying happy birthday to her are people that make money of Blake Lively. They're all business associates with her. So they're all like hairstylists and nail designers and makeup artists or yoga teachers, everyone that she's doing business with. One of her hairstylists called Jennifer Yepes, she posted like 8 photos of her and Blake Lively reposted them on story. So it looks like there's so many people that are admiring her and that are wishing her a happy birthday. But in reality, as I said, it's just people she's doing business with who wants to stay in business with her because they do make money on being Blake Lively's friend. So as I said, while Blake Lively was busy reposting all of this, Taylor Swift, her ex-BFF, announced that she's now engaged to the love of her life, apparently, Travis Kelce. And as expected, Blake Lively did not congratulate her ex-BFF Taylor Swift. She didn't even like the post. Daily Mail did a story on it saying Blake Lively fails to react to Taylor Swift engagement news as her celebrity pals send love. Swift longtime pals supermodel Gigi Hadid, Carly Kloss, and Cara Delevingne were quick to like the post, showing support from her girl squad. But Blake Lively was absent from the list of likes, continuing a rocky chapter in her friendship with the Shake It Off singer. Guess who's not invited to the wedding? Anyways, let's get into parts of this deposition that was now unsealed by the judge. The fact that the judge is allowing this evidence to be unsealed and for part of Blake Lively's sworn statement to be unsealed is because he thinks this information is relevant. So keep that in mind. So as I said, this is in relations to Jed Wallace, a position against Blake Lively. He's trying to get her case against him dismissed again. So he was there with his attorney during the day that Blake Lively was deposed. And his attorney asked Blake Lively some questions about this alleged smear campaign. And this is what happened. So the attorney asked Blake Lively, is there anything you've seen in writing that you believe that Mr. Wallace has authored that is defamatory, disparaging, or says mean things about you? Blake Lively says, that's happening currently. The lawyer says, well, let's start with currently. Sure. Blake Lively answers, currently, I don't read news about me or go on social media about me. So personally, I don't have knowledge. No. Okay, says the attorney. And that's as of today. And going backward in time, can you identify any written thing that you believe Mr. Wallace published about you that is defamatory, disparaging, in any way offending to you? Then attorney Hudson says, objection. But then Blake Lively answers is anyway, and she says, a specific article or no, I don't know a specific article. Okay, says the attorney. And he says, and you're not aware of anything that he's authored that you can actually see, whether it's a post, an article, or a video, or something like that, correct? Objection, says Ezra Hudson. But Blake Lively continues to answer anyways. And she says, I can't cite a specific article. My understanding from the documents I received is that he was a part of this campaign, which contained a lot of content. But to be able to name one specific article, if that's what you're asking, no. Yeah, okay, says the attorney. And you're right to focus on one specific article. And I also wanted to focus on one specific author, which would be Mr. Wallace. And are you aware of any specific article that he authored himself, maybe in conjunction with others, but that he authored himself? Objection, says Ezra Hudson. Ezra Hudson doesn't want Blake Lively to answer any questions. Obviously, if she was actually listening to Ezra Hudson, it probably would be good for her, because then she wouldn't put herself in this position saying that she doesn't know about anything. But she doesn't listen to Ezra, and she's answering, and she says, with his name on it, no. I understand Mr. Wallace's work to be quite clandestine, so I'm not aware of anything that has his name on it, no. And then this part I find very interesting, because in this next chapter, Blake Lively kind of admits that she was not on top of things at all. She doesn't remember any dates. So the attorney is asking her, the production started in early May of 2023. Is that right, of the movie It Ends With Us? And she says, the filming itself started, I believe, yeah, in May of 2023. That's 2 years ago. She should remember these things. Okay, says the attorney. And was that in California? Blake says, no, it was in New Jersey. And then the attorney says, oh, I thought everything was in California. Okay, and then there was a writer's strike that stopped in June of 2023, correct? Yes, correct, says Blake. And then production resumed maybe on January 5th of 2024, is that right? Okay, was that also in New Jersey or was that in California? The attorney asks. That was in New Jersey, Blake Lively says. We shot a couple of days in California at the end. Okay, says the attorney. Was the movie shot anywhere other than New Jersey or California? Blake Lively answers, I believe they did additional photography and side shots and inserts, not inserts, but wider shots of scenery in other locations. Do you know where those locations were? I don't, says Blake Lively. So the attorney's asking, you weren't involved in them? They just shot them other places? Yes, says Blake Lively, producer of the movie, who didn't even know where these other places were that they shot the movie. She did get that producer stamp, which I thought is quite interesting, that she doesn't even remember these things and she doesn't know where part of the movie was shot. Like, what kind of producer is that? Then he asks her about astroturfing. You guys, this is quite interesting. He says, okay, and you say in this complaint, so he's referring to the amended complaint that Blake Lively filed against Jed Wallace. And he says, okay, and you say in this complaint that the coordinated astroturfing campaign to discredit and bury Ms. Lively. What do you mean by bury you? The astroturfing campaign was meant to bury you. Objection, says Ezra Hudson. Every question she objects to. So then he asks another question. He says, do you know what that means? What is meant by that? Objection, says Ezra Hudson. But then Blake Lively decides to answer, and she says, I do know what that means. And what is meant by that, says the attorney. And Blake's answer, they were descriptives that were used by Justin Baldoni, Jennifer Abel, and Melissa Nathan. The term bury, he wants to feel like she can be buried. Okay, and, says the attorney. And Melissa Nathan said, we can bury her, says Blake Lively. Okay, says the attorney. So that's why the word was chosen, says Blake Lively. Question from the attorney again. This is going to seem like a fallacious or silly question, but you didn't take that to mean they were going to physically bury you, just they were going to reputationally bury you. Is that how you took it or not? Blake says, when they said that, I felt reputationally. And then she says, when Steve Sarowitz said there would be 2 dead bodies by the time that he was done with us, yeah, I considered that might be literal. So she actually thought that they were going to kill her. I mean, seriously? And then the attorney says, you thought you might be in physical jeopardy? And she says, as a mother, you feel like anything could be possible in those moments. It's terrifying. And the attorney continues, yeah, putting aside the physical jeopardy, was the reference to burying 2 dead bodies inclusive of reputational injury or not? And then attorney Hudson says, objection. And then Blake Lively answers anyways. And she says, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. So then it jumps down to later in the day. So this is like at 7 p.m., 7:22, this happened. So the deposition started around 10. So yeah, she was there for many hours. She was grilled for hours on end. And then the attorney asks her, so then there's another subject here where he asks her about the premiere of It Ends With Us. And he says that the premiere was on August 6th of 2024. Is that right? And she says, I don't know the exact date, but that sounds great. She doesn't even remember the date of the premiere, the producer of the movie. And the attorney says, okay. And then he's showing her some papers. They're talking about some documents here. And then he's showing it to her and he says, does that refresh your recollection as to when the premiere was? And Blake says, oh, sorry, I wasn't there yet. This is blah, blah, blah document, Tuesday, August 6th. It Ends With Us premiere. Yes. Okay, says the attorney. And the film release was on August 9th. Is that right? And she said, yeah, in the United States, yes, it released at different times in different international territories. But for the sake of our conversation today, when I've talked about the day the film was released, I was talking about August 9th. Okay, says the attorney. And you testified earlier that that was when you first became aware of the negative arguments or the negative articles about you, right? And she says, after the objection, of course, from Ezra Hudson, she says, not an article. No, it felt, no, not one article, she says. So she can't name any articles in relations to what she's accusing Jed Wallace of. So now by releasing this part of her deposition actually proves that Justin Baldoni was just defending himself because she has absolutely zero evidence that she know of at this point that can actually back up her claims. By now, all we know about this smear campaign are the headlines that she created about it, because there's no other evidence than her PR campaign. She's just admitting that the smear campaign is really only in her head and in the headlines of the mainstream media. I don't know. That's all she said during these conversations, and that's not going to look good in front of a jury if the judge ever decides to put this in front of a jury. That's what people are speculating now, that this could fuel the judge to actually do a summary judgment and say there's not enough evidence to actually move this into a courtroom and then say, case dismissed. She's accusing Baldoni of the things that she's been doing from day one. It's classic projection. She's pointing the finger at the other side while she's the one spinning the story. Clever, maybe, but convincing in court? No way. Yeah, so let's see what the judge says about this, if he's going to dismiss Jed Wallace's case again. I mean, based on this, except that she has proved that he was hired, she has no evidence that he was hired to smear her. The only evidence she has is that he was hired to protect Justin Baldoni's reputation and to get the true story out in the press and out on social media. That's all she can prove that was Jed Wallace's job. Also, Wayfair responded to Leslie Sloan, who's saying that I want my legal fees covered by Justin Baldoni and the Wayfair because they defamed me and they filed a lawsuit against me without having really any evidence, and they did this with malice. And as you know, she used James Vitushka and his new sworn statements as evidence that she should get these legal fees reimbursed. And Baldoni's team is saying that that text message that she attached was taken out of context, and that Vitushka's declaration are inconsistent and unreliable. As you know, he filed a sworn statement in June and then he changed it last week. So he doesn't look like a reliable witness whatsoever. And he is accusing Justin Baldoni and the Wayfarer for him losing his job at the Daily Mail. Well, they're saying here also that his credibility is suspect because he was fired for inserting himself into this lawsuit. And even if it's true what that text message said, that message is just a tiny part of that defamation suit and the claims of defamation that they filed against Leslie Sloan. It wasn't based on one text, it was based on a bigger picture of their coordinating attempt to smear Justin Baldoni in that New York Times article. Ryan Friedman is pointing out that Lively Sloan and Ryan Reynolds were working together to spread false claims of misconduct in the New York Times, and Sloan individually telling press that Baldoni committed misconduct. As we've seen, there are evidence of that she was planting stories out there. And they also said that the defamation suit was resting on a scheme where Stephanie Jones seized Jennifer Abel's phone to mine messages and manufacture a false smear campaign narrative. As you know, they took her phone, they cherry-picked some messages and created a story that they wanted people to believe, and they got New York Times to publish it. They also saying that Leslie Sloan filed this, it's called a third reply, without any permission. So the court didn't permit her to file this letter. So they're saying, Judge, don't even consider it. And she's just repeating herself in this filing. Please, Judge Lyman, make a good decision here. Anyways, again, remember, tomorrow is the day that Perez Hilton is going to show up in Las Vegas in the courtroom. So as I said before, if you're there, please go and support him. Here is the address if you happen to be there. And if you do, please let me know. I would love to hear your experience. They will actually allow you into the courtroom. And as far as we know now, Blake Lively is bringing 3 attorneys with her, one from DC and one from New York and another one, whatever. And Perez Hilton is doing this by himself. So what they're trying to prove here is also what they're trying to prove with Andy Signor. He posted a video yesterday with his response to Blake Lively, and it's all about trying to prove that they are not journalists, because if they take away their reporter privilege, that opens the possibility of them to be able to see their sources. But the thing is, this is so contradicting because they're saying they are not journalists, but then they want to see their sources. So if they're not journalists, how come they have sources? And also, what is a journalist? What is a journalist today? I think that's quite interesting. And let's see how the judge will rule on that in Nevada. I'm very curious to hear if he says that Perez Hilton is not a journalist. He had a celebrity news site for decades and he's been covering news stories in the entertainment world. As Perez said himself, Blake Lively might not like his type of reporting, but he's still a reporter. Yeah, the rest of this week might give us some more answers, you guys. So please stay tuned and I will keep you updated as always. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode of Blossom Talk. And I'll see you in my next one.
Yeah, we
Bye.
Blossom Talk.